The enormous doors of the Galactic Council chamber stretched upward for what seemed like forever. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood at the threshold, looking at the massive space beyond. The chamber was so large that clouds formed near its ceiling. Thousands of seats arranged in concentric circles rose into the darkness above, and each seat held a representative from a different alien civilization. Marcus had seen photographs, of course. Every human who worked in the diplomatic corps studied images of this place, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The air itself seemed to hum with power, with authority, with the weight of civilizations that had been traveling between stars when Earth's ancestors were still learning to make fire. Ambassador Webb of Earth. A voice boomed through the chamber. The words came in English, but Marcus knew they were being translated into thousands of languages simultaneously. You will approach the judgment circle. Marcus walked forward. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. On either side of him, holographic displays showed his face, his credentials, and information about Earth. He caught glimpses of the data as he walked. Tier 4 civilization. Recently contacted. Technological level. Primitive. Military capacity. Negligible. Political influence. None. The judgment circle was a raised platform at the center of the chamber. As Marcus stepped onto it, lights focused on him from every direction. He was on display, visible to every delegate in the enormous room. Somewhere in the darkness above, he knew, billions of beings across the galaxy were watching this proceeding through live broadcasts. You stand accused, the voice continued, and Marcus now saw its source. High Arbiter Veltros sat at the highest point in the chamber, his crystalline body reflecting the lights and patterns that hurt to look at directly. Your species has violated Galactic Law Article 447C. You entered a forbidden zone without authorization. You trespassed in territory sacred to the Vec Imperium. How do you answer these charges? Marcus took a slow breath. The temperature in the chamber was uncomfortably warm, just below the point where he would start to sweat visibly. They had researched human biology carefully. They wanted him uncomfortable, but not incapacitated. They wanted him to feel the pressure of this moment. Earth acknowledges that our survey vessel entered the designated coordinates, Marcus said, his voice carrying through the chamber's acoustics. However, we contest that this constitutes a violation. The Forbidden Zone was not marked on any navigational charts provided to Tier 4 civilizations. We had no way of knowing the area was restricted. A sound like thunder rolled through the chamber. It took Marcus a moment to realize it was laughter. Thousands of alien species finding his defense amusing. Ignorance is not a defense, Veltros said. The Vec Imperium has demanded restitution. They propose that Earth surrender the survey vessel, its crew, and 3 of your colony worlds as compensation for this insult. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. 3 colony worlds meant 15 billion human lives. Men, women, children who had never even heard of the Vec Imperium, whose only crime was being born human during a diplomatic crisis. From the middle tiers of the chamber, a figure rose. It stood 7 feet tall, covered in black chitinous armor that seemed to absorb light. Its 4 arms each held a different ceremonial weapon. This was a Vec representative, and from the markings on its carapace, this was someone important. I am Thrax, first champion of the Vec Imperium, the creature said, its voice like metal scraping against stone. The humans trespass in our most sacred spawning grounds. This is not a simple violation. This is an act of war. We could crush their pathetic civilization in days. But we are merciful. We offer them a chance to preserve some dignity. Marcus watched Thrax carefully. The Vec champion moved with absolute confidence, each gesture calculated to demonstrate superiority. This was a being that had never known defeat, never questioned its place in the galactic hierarchy. We propose a trial by combat, Thrax continued. One champion from each species. If the human wins, the violation is forgiven and forgotten. When the human loses, Earth becomes a tributary state of the Veek Imperium. Your species will serve us until such time as we consider the debt paid. The chamber erupted in discussion. Thousands of species debating the proposal, analyzing the implications, calculating the odds. Marcus stood silently in the judgment circle, appearing to consider the offer. In reality, he was buying time, letting his mind race through options. A trial by combat was essentially a death sentence. The Vec were Tier 1, the highest classification in galactic society. They had spent centuries modifying their biology, enhancing their warriors, perfecting the art of single combat. Thrax himself was legendary. Marcus had read the files. Thrax had fought 47 sanctioned trials and won them all. Some had lasted seconds. None had lasted more than 10 minutes. Earth had no champion who could match that. No human warrior, no matter how skilled, could stand against a Veek in a straight fight. It would be like sending a child to fight a tank, but the alternative was surrendering 3 colony worlds immediately. And Marcus knew that would only be the beginning. Once the Vec had Earth under their control, they would demand more and more until there was nothing left of human civilization but scattered refugees. High Arbiter Valtros raised one crystalline appendage. The chamber fell silent instantly, thousands of voices cutting off mid-sentence. That casual display of authority told Marcus everything he needed to know about Valtros' power in this place. The proposal is unusual, Valtros said, but not without precedent. Trial by combat has been used to settle disputes between species of vastly different capabilities. However, we recognize the extreme disparity in this case. Ambassador Webb, you may refuse this trial and accept immediate judgment for your violation. Marcus understood what was really being offered. He could refuse, and Earth would be found guilty, but might negotiate lesser penalties. Colony worlds would still be lost, reparations would still be demanded, but it might be survivable. Or he could accept the trial, watch a human champion be destroyed in minutes, and lose everything anyway. The smart choice was obvious. Refuse the trial. Negotiate. Minimize. The damaged Marcus had not become Earth's chief negotiator by making the smart choice every time. I accept the trial by combat, he said clearly. The chamber buzzed with surprise. Even Thrax seemed taken aback, his armored head tilting in what might have been confusion or respect. You understand what you are agreeing to? Valtros asked. You have seen the records of Thrax's previous victories? I have, Marcus confirmed. Then you know that no Tier 4 champion has ever defeated Tier 1 warrior in sanctioned combat. The odds of your victory are statistically negligible. I understand the odds, Marcus said. I also understand that refusing the trial means accepting defeat without even trying. That is not something humans do well. Valtros made a sound that the translator could not interpret. After a moment, he continued. Very well. The trial is accepted. As the challenged party, you may choose the arena. This is traditional, though the advantage is typically minimal. This was the moment Marcus had been waiting for. The entire reason he had accepted an unwinnable fight. He looked up at Thrax, at Valtros, at the thousands of alien species watching from the darkness above. I choose Earth, Marcus said. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Species that had sat in dignified silence suddenly erupted in protests and objections. The very idea was apparently shocking to them. In the chaos, Marcus caught fragments of translated outrage. A homeworld arena is unprecedented for a Tier 4 species. This is a violation of combat protocols. The human seeks unfair advantage. High Arbiter Valtros allowed the chaos to continue for exactly 30 seconds. Then he raised his appendage again, and silence returned like a curtain falling. "The choice is within the challenged party's rights," Veltros said, "though I admit it is an unusual selection. Ambassador Webb, you understand that choosing your own homeworld may be interpreted as desperation?" "Let them interpret it however they want," Marcus replied. "You gave me the choice of arena. I choose Earth." Thrax began to laugh. The sound echoed through the chamber, harsh and mocking. "The human chooses his own world. How convenient. He will die in front of his own people, surrounded by his primitive technology. Very well, I accept. I will enjoy teaching Earth what it means to challenge the Vec." Valtros nodded slowly. "The trial will commence in 48 standard hours. Thrax may bring one support vessel to transport himself and required equipment. The combat will be witnessed by council observers to ensure fairness. Are these terms acceptable to both parties?" "Acceptable," Thrax said immediately. Marcus hesitated just long enough to make it look like he was considering. "Acceptable. Then this session is concluded. Prepare yourselves. In 2 days, the galaxy will witness either humanity's redemption or its subjugation." The lights dimmed, and the session ended. Marcus was escorted from the judgment circle by automated guide systems. He did not look back at the thousands of watching aliens. He kept his face carefully neutral, showing neither fear nor triumph. Only when he was safely in the private transport back to Earth's diplomatic queue. The Grand Assembly Hall stretched upward for what seemed like miles. Crystalline walls pulsed with strange light, while thousands of alien beings filled the ascending tiers. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood at the center of the circular platform, completely alone. Above him, 9 massive thrones held the Council of 9, creatures so ancient they had witnessed stars being born. Marcus felt every eye upon him. Some of those eyes were familiar, like human eyes. Others were compound lenses the size of dinner plates. Still others seemed to be pure energy contained in magnetic fields. 643 species had sent representatives to watch this moment. All of them wanted to see what would happen when the newest species in the galaxy faced judgment. The air itself seemed to vibrate with tension. Marcus adjusted his gray suit jacket, deliberately simple compared to the elaborate displays of biological wonder and technological advancement surrounding him. He had chosen the outfit carefully. No weapons. No technology visible on his body. Just a man in a plain suit, representing an entire world. High Arbiter Velmoth spoke first. His voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder, translated instantly into thousands of languages by technology Marcus barely understood. The Velrothi was immense, his body covered in tentacles that shifted through colors Marcus had no names for. According to the briefings, Velmoth had held his position for 3,000 years. The human delegation consists of one individual? The contempt in that translated voice was impossible to miss. Marcus met the creature's gaze without flinching. "I am sufficient for this discussion, High Arbiter." Laughter rippled through the galleries. Not human laughter, but clicks and whistles and sounds that made Marcus's chest vibrate. They were mocking him. He had expected that. Earth's xenopsychology team had predicted it perfectly. Humanity has been summoned to answer for violations of Galactic Statute 447, subsection 12, Velmoth continued. The unauthorized colonization of 14 star systems within the disputed territories. The deployment of artificial intelligence beyond Class 3 restrictions. The possession of weaponized quantum entanglement devices. Marcus remained silent. His instructions had been clear. Let them talk first. Let them reveal what they thought they knew. The penalty for these violations is clear, announced another council member. This one appeared to be made of pure energy, contained within a shimmering magnetic field. Humanity will surrender all colonies in the disputed territories. Your artificial intelligence systems will be dismantled under Council supervision. Your quantum research will be transferred to the Galactic Science Directorate. Furthermore, Earth's biosphere will be placed under protective quarantine for the next 500 standard years. 500 years. Marcus kept his face carefully neutral, but inside, anger burned. Protective quarantine was a pleasant way of saying prison. Earth would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy, unable to expand, unable to trade, unable to grow. Humanity would be caged like animals in a zoo while other species decided their fate. Do you understand the terms? Velmov asked. Do you accept the Council's judgment? This was the moment. Marcus had traveled 6 months through space to reach this chamber. 6 months of preparation, of studying every species represented here, of running simulations and scenarios. Earth's best minds had worked tirelessly to prepare him for this exact question. He reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Instantly, the chamber exploded into action. Weapon systems locked onto him from a dozen different directions. Energy shields materialized around the Council of Nine. Security drones descended from hidden ports in the ceiling, their weapons humming with lethal intent. Marcus withdrew a small data crystal and held it up between 2 fingers. Before I respond, he said calmly, I would like to share something with the Council. A bit of human history. Velmuth's tentacles twisted with visible irritation. This chamber is not a classroom for primitive species. Humor me, Marcus replied. Something in his tone made several nearby aliens lean forward with sudden interest. It is relevant to your judgment. The High Arbiter gestured impatiently. Marcus tossed the crystal toward the central podium. Gravitational fields caught it, scanned it for threats, and finding none, projected its contents into the air above the chamber. Images appeared. A blue and green planet, achingly beautiful against the darkness of space. Earth. Earth, as you know it, Marcus said. Population 11 billion. Technologically advanced enough to be noticed by your sensors 40 years ago. Diplomatically naive enough to accept your invitation to join the galactic community. The images shifted. Cities appeared in the holographic display, then vanished in blinding flashes of nuclear fire. Oceans boiled. Continents cracked and burned. The assembled aliens watched in silence as an entire world destroyed itself. What the Council may not know, Marcus continued, is that this is Earth's 4th global civilization. The previous 3 destroyed themselves. The last time, we came within 6,000 individuals of total extinction. The chamber had grown completely quiet. Even the dismissive clicking and whistling had stopped. Every being present was watching the images of Earth's self-inflicted apocalypse. We rebuilt from that, Marcus said. We studied our own history with the intensity that most species reserve for their enemies. We learned something that I don't think any of you have truly understood about humanity. He paused, letting the weight of those terrible images hang in the air. The burning cities, the poisoned oceans, the skeletal remains of a civilization that had reached too far and fallen too hard. We learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to walk away from a bad deal, no matter the cost. The energy being on the Council flickered with what might have been confusion. You would refuse the Council's judgment? The consequences would be severe. Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Several of the nearest aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Let me tell you about consequences, he said quietly. And then you can decide if you really want to enforce your judgment. The security drones had not moved, but Marcus noticed several Council members exchanging glances through whatever sensory organs they possessed. He had their complete attention now. The mocking laughter had died. The contempt had faded. Now there was only uncertainty and the beginning of something that might have been fear. 3 months ago, Marcus said, your enforcement fleet attempted to seize one of our colony ships in the Kepler 442 system. 12 of your vessels surrounded the ship and demanded immediate surrender. A lawful action under Council authority, Velmoth began. The ship jumped to quantum space, Marcus interrupted. His voice cut through the High Arbiter's words like a knife. Not through a gate. Not using any of your approved methods. It simply folded space around itself and vanished. He let that statement hang in the air for several seconds. Your fleet spent 2 weeks searching for debris, assuming the primitive humans had accidentally destroyed themselves, attempting faster than light travel. Several council members were leaning forward now, their full attention focused on the humans standing alone at the center of their grand chamber. The ship arrived at its destination 4 days later, having crossed 300 light years instantaneously. It sent a message back to Earth using a communication method that does not rely on your relay network. A method you cannot monitor, intercept, or block. The chamber erupted in chaos, that the noise in the Grand Assembly Hall was deafening. 643 species all began shouting or clicking or whistling or making whatever sounds indicated shock and disbelief in their particular biology. High Arbiter Velmoth was demanding silence, his tentacles flashing through angry colors. But dozens of representatives were already on their feet, demanding explanations. Marcus Webb waited calmly at the center of the platform. He had expected this reaction. The xenopsychology team had predicted chaos at this exact moment in the presentation. Let them panic, the briefing had said. Let them understand that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. Took nearly 5 minutes for order to be restored. When the chamber finally quieted, Velmoth's voice was cold and dangerous. These claims are impossible. Our sensors would have detected such advanced development. Your sensors detect what they are designed to detect, Marcus replied. You have been looking for your own technology, reflected back at you. You never considered that we might have developed something completely different. He pulled another data crystal from his pocket. This time, no weapons locked onto him. The Council was too stunned to react with their usual protocols. I am transmitting access codes to one of our deep space observation posts right now. Your sensors will confirm its existence within the hour. That facility has been monitoring your enforcement fleet maneuvers in the Antares sector for the past 6 months. One of the Council members, a massive creature that looked like it had been carved from living stone, slammed the limb against its throne. This is an act of war. You have been spying on Council military operations. Yes, Marcus agreed simply. Just as you have been monitoring every communication from Earth for the past 40 years. The difference is that you knew you were being observed. We did not extend you the same courtesy. Velmoth's skin rippled through several colors that Marcus had learned indicated extreme. The human never claimed to offer honorable combat, Veltros said quietly. He claimed to choose his arena. He has done so. We will observe and witness as required. In the facility below, Thrax rose to his feet, plasma blades still clutched in his hand. His tactical implant was already scanning the environment, analyzing threats, calculating optimal strategies. What it found confused him. The facility's temperature was exactly 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Human body temperature. Thermal imaging would be useless for tracking the ambassador. The air circulation created constant motion throughout the complex. Motion detection would show false positives everywhere. White noise generators hummed from concealed speakers. Audio tracking would be compromised. What is this place? Thrax demanded, his voice echoing through empty corridors. Marcus's reply came from hidden speakers. Impossible to pinpoint. This is what happens when a species spends millions of years fighting for survival on a death world. We learn to use every advantage. We learn to turn the environment into a weapon. We learn that fair fights are for people who can afford to lose. Thrax spun in a circle, blade extended, searching for his opponent. Face me, human. Face me with honor. You keep using that word. Marcus said, his voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Honor. You challenged a species that barely has spaceflight capability. You brought cybernetic enhancements, genetic modifications, and armor that could withstand a nuclear blast. You expected me to stand still while you cut me down in front of billions of witnesses. Where is the honor in that?" The lights went out. Thrax's tactical implant compensated immediately, switching to alternative visual spectrums. But every spectrum showed the same thing, a facility perfectly designed to neutralize his advantages. The uniform temperature defeated thermal. The constant air movement defeated motion tracking. The white noise defeated audio analysis. For the first time in his 47 trials, Thrax could not see his enemy. Marcus move through the darkness with practiced ease. He had spent 6 months training in this facility, learning every corridor, every intersection, every hiding spot. He knew where the air currents would carry sound and where they would muffle it. He knew which surfaces would reflect sensor beams and which would absorb them. Most importantly, he knew he could not defeat Thrax in direct combat. The Vec warrior was stronger, faster, and better armed. In any fair fight, Marcus would die in seconds. So he had no intention of fighting fair. He pressed a control on his wrist, and music began to play through the facility's speakers. Not the refined artistic expressions that most galactic species appreciated, but something raw and primal. Heavy drums, distorted guitars, aggressive human vocals that sang about resistance and survival, and refusing to surrender. Thrax's audio filters struggled to compensate. The tactical implant tried to filter the music as background noise, but the volume and intensity made that impossible. Every crash of drums masked potential footsteps. Every guitar riff concealed the sound of movement. The Vec warrior spun, blade cutting through empty air, fighting an enemy he could not find. And in the darkness, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. The trial had truly begun. 3 hours into the trial, Thrax was learning something that no combat instructor had ever taught him. Victory was not always about superior strength or advanced technology. Sometimes it was about who could adapt faster to an environment that kept changing. The Vec warrior stood in a corridor that he could have sworn he had already cleared twice. His tactical implant insisted this was a new location, but the architecture looked identical to a dozen other passages he had searched. The facility was a maze, and worse than that, it was a maze that seemed to rearrange itself. Marcus watched from a hidden observation post 3 levels above. Multiple screens showed him Thrax's position, vital signs, and movement patterns. The Vec champion was impressive, Marcus had to admit. Lesser warriors would have panicked by now, would have exhausted themselves searching blindly. But Thrax was methodical, conserving energy, learning the facility's patterns. He was also slowly overheating. Dr. Park's voice came through Marcus's earpiece. His core temperature has risen 2.3 degrees in the last hour. The enhanced metabolism that makes him so strong is working against him in this environment. How much longer until it becomes critical? Marcus asked quietly. At current rates, maybe 4 more hours. But he will start experiencing reduced performance much sooner. Enhanced muscles need more oxygen, more cooling. The facility's environmental controls are pushing him toward his limits. Marcus nodded. Everything was going according to plan, but that did not make him feel better. He was essentially torturing a warrior who had agreed to honorable combat. Part of him felt guilty about that. The larger part remembered that Thrax had intended to kill him quickly and then enslave 15 billion humans. Guilt was a luxury Earth could not afford today. On the surface, the council witnesses watched multiple video feeds showing the underground complex. The reactions were mixed. Some species seemed outraged by the tactics. Others watched with what might have been respect or even amusement. High Arbiter Veltros observed in silence. He had reviewed Earth's history since the combat trial was announced. What he found disturbed him in ways he had not anticipated. Humans had spent their entire existence fighting each other. Not occasional conflicts like most species, but constant warfare. Thousands of years of developing new ways to kill, to deceive, to win at any cost. And now they were using all that accumulated knowledge against a single Vec warrior. One of the witnesses, a being from the Kelver Confederation, turned to Veltros. "This is not combat. This is cruelty. The human hides like prey, while the noble warrior searches blindly. The human uses the advantages available to him," Veltros replied. "Just as Thrax uses his enhanced body, his tactical implant, and his superior weapons. The difference is that we are accustomed to advantages being technological. We forget that knowledge and environment can be equally powerful. You defend this deception? I state facts," Veltros said. "Whether the first to prove is irrelevant. The trial continues within established parameters." In the facility, Marcus moved to his next position. He had divided the complex into zones, each designed for a specific purpose. Zone 1 had been about disorientation and sensory denial. Zone 2 was about exhaustion. Now he was leading Thrax toward Zone 3, where things would become more aggressive. He dropped a small metal object in the corridor behind him. It clattered loudly as it hit the floor. Thrax's head snapped toward the sound. His tactical implant calculated trajectory, analyzed the acoustic signature, and determined the object's approximate size and composition. A small metal cylinder, possibly a weapon, possibly a tool. The Vec warrior approached carefully, plasma blade extended. He had learned caution over the past 3 hours. The facility was full of traps, surprises, and deceptions. The metal cylinder lay in the center of the corridor. Perfectly ordinary, completely harmless in appearance. Thrax's blade touched it, ready to slice it in half. The explosion was not large. Just enough force to knock the Vec warrior backward, to fill the corridor with smoke and debris, to damage his armor's left leg joint. The blast would not have seriously injured a human in basic body armor, but it did not need to. It just needed to slow Thrax down, to make him more cautious, to burn more of his energy by the time Thrax recovered and cleared the smoke from his visual sensors. Marcus was 3 corridors away, setting up the next phase. The council witnesses watched the explosion on their monitors. Some seemed shocked. Others merely updated their assessments of human tactical capabilities. "The human is not trying to win honorably," the Kelver representative said. "He is trying to win through attrition and deception." "Yes," Veltros agreed. "That is exactly what he is doing. And it is working." 2 more hours passed. Thrax had survived 4 more explosive traps, 3 false trails, and 2 corridor sections that had suddenly sealed behind him, forcing him to find alternate routes. His armor was scorched and dented. His core temperature had risen another degree. His tactical implant was struggling to maintain accurate mapping data for a facility that seemed to change configuration every 20 minutes. On one screen in the command center, Dr. Park pulled up a schematic. The facility is about to reconfigure again. Zone 3 architecture will shift to Zone 4 layout in 90 seconds. Marcus studied the new configuration. Zone 4 was different from the previous sections. The corridors were wider, the ceilings higher. It was designed to give Thrax hope. To make him think he finally had room to maneuver properly. It was designed to set him up for the next phase of the plan. "Initiate reconfiguration," Marcus ordered. Throughout the facility, hydraulic systems activated. Walls that had appeared solid rotated on hidden pivots. Floor sections raised and lowered. The maze rearranged itself into a new pattern. Thrax felt the vibrations through his feet and immediately went on high alert. Something was changing. His tactical implant tried to compensate, tried to update its map in real time, but the changes were too extensive. The data became meaningless. When the movement stopped, Thrax found himself in a WID, a corridor than he had seen before. The ceiling was higher. There was actual space to move, to fight properly. If the human finally showed himself, it felt like a gift. That made Thrax immediately suspicious. Marcus's voice came through the speakers again. You are probably wondering why I just gave you more room to maneuver. Let me explain. For 3 hours, I have been showing you that your advantages mean nothing in the right environment. Your strength is useless if you cannot reach your enemy. Your weapons are pointless if you cannot find your target. Your tactical implant is just expensive hardware when the data becomes unreliable. Thrax spun slowly, trying to pinpoint the voice's origin. It was impossible. The acoustics scattered sound in every direction. But I want you to understand something else, Marcus continued. This is not about humiliating the Vec. This is not about proving humans are superior. This is about showing the galaxy what happens when you back a species into a corner, when you threaten everything they love, when you give them no choice but to fight with every tool available. A door opened at the end of the corridor. Beyond it, lights activated, revealing a large circular chamber. At its center stood Marcus Webb, unarmed, waiting. Thrax's tactical implant screamed warnings. This was obviously a trap. The human would not simply present himself after hours of careful evasion. But Thrax was also tired, frustrated, and angry. His warrior's pride demanded he face this challenge directly. He had been trained for honorable combat, not this endless game of hide and seek. He entered the chamber. Marcus watched the Vec warrior approach. This was the critical moment. Everything depended on whether Thrax's anger would overcome his tactical judgment. The Vec champion crossed the threshold. Plasma blade ready. Enhanced muscles coiled for explosive action. Marcus pressed another button on his wrist. The chamber floor began to move. Not dramatically at first, just a subtle rotation. But the rotation accelerated quickly, and Thrax suddenly understood the trap. The entire chamber was a centrifuge. His tactical implant calculated the forces instantly. The rotational speed was increasing exponentially. Within seconds, the centrifugal force would become overwhelming. Thrax deployed his magnetic clamps, the same ones that had failed in the entrance shaft. They found no purchase on the chamber's specially treated floor. He tried to run toward the center where the forces would be minimal, but his enhanced mass worked against him. Every kilogram of muscle and armor that made him a superior warrior became an anchor dragging him toward the outer wall. Marcus stood at the exact center of rotation, where the forces were manageable. He had trained for this, had practiced maintaining balance while the chamber spun. It was not easy, but it was possible for someone who weighed less and understood the physics. Thrax crashed into the wall with tremendous force. His armor protected him from serious injury, but the impact was disorienting. He tried to stand, but the rotational forces were too great. His enhanced strength meant nothing against simple physics. The centrifuge spun faster. On the surface, the council witnesses watched in stunned silence. They were seeing something unprecedented. A Tier 4 species using basic engineering and physics to neutralize a Tier 1 warrior's advantages. This is ingenious, one witness said quietly, and terrifying. Valtros said nothing. He was beginning to understand something important about humans. They did not fight the way other species fought. They fought the way survivors fought. With everything. With anything. Without hesitation or mercy, the centrifuge reached maximum speed and then began to slow. When it stopped, Thrax lay against the wall, disoriented but conscious. His armor had protected him, but his core temperature had spiked from the exertion and stress. Marcus remained at the center, breathing hard but still standing. You understand now, Marcus said quietly. This is not about honor or glory. This is about what species will do to protect themselves. You came to Earth expecting a quick victory. You expected us to accept our place as Tier 4. You expected us to be weak. Thrax struggled to rise. His pride demanded he continue fighting. We are not strong like the Vec, Marcus continued. We cannot match your technology. We cannot beat you in the kind of combat you train for. But we can do this. We can turn our own weakness into a weapon. We can make you fight on our terms instead of yours. The chamber's walls suddenly displayed new images. Not psychological warfare this time, but something simpler. Videos of Earth. Children playing in parks. Families gathering for meals. Cities at night with millions of lights. All the ordinary moments of human life that would disappear if Earth became a Vic tributary state. This is what you threatened, Marcus said. Not warriors. Not soldiers. Just people living their lives. And that is why we will use every trick, every trap, every desperate measure to stop you. Thrax finally regained his feet. He looked at the images, then at Marcus, then at his own damaged armor and overheating body. For the first time in 47 trials, the Vec champion was not certain of victory. 5 hours into the trial, Thrax made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He began removing his armor. Marcus watched on the monitors as the Vec warrior detached piece after piece of the ceremonial battlesuit. Each section had been engraved with victory symbols, had been blessed by Vec priests, had been worn in dozens of previous trials. And now Thrax was leaving it in a pile on the chamber floor. What is he doing? Dr. Park asked, leaning closer to her screen. He is adapting, General Riker said with grudging respect. He figured out that his armor's mass is a liability in this environment. Without it, he will be faster and generate less heat. Marcus felt a cold knot form in his stomach. This was something the planning committee had considered, but hoped would not happen. Thrax in full armor was intimidating but predictable. Thrax without armor was a different problem entirely. The Vec warrior stood in the chamber, wearing only a minimal environmental suit. He was still massive, still covered in chitinous natural armor, still holding the plasma blade. But now he moved with a fluidity that had been impossible before. He tested his speed with a few practice strikes, and even through the monitors, Marcus could see the difference. Thrax looked directly at one of the cameras. I understand now, human. You built this facility to counter my advantages. You studied Vic warriors and designed every trap around what we are. But you made one mistake. You assumed I would not adapt. He turned in a slow circle, addressing all the cameras. I have fought 47 trials. I have faced warriors from species that were building starships when their ancestors lived in caves. I have won because I am strong, yes, but also because I learn. And what I have learned from you is valuable. Marcus pressed his communicator. All teams, Thrax has entered adaptation phase. Initiate Protocol 7. Throughout the facility, systems activated. The white noise changed frequency. The air circulation patterns shifted. The lighting, such as it was, modified its spectrum. Every countermeasure was being adjusted to account for Thrax's new configuration. But even as the changes took effect, Marcus knew the equation had shifted. Thrax without armor could move through narrower passages. He generated less heat, making thermal management easier. He was more agile, harder to predict. The Vec warrior began moving through the facility with renewed purpose. His tactical implant, no longer burdened with compensating for armor weight and thermal load, processed information more efficiently. He started recognizing patterns in the corridor layouts. The facility was modular, he realized. It reconfigured, but the individual components were limited. There were only so many possible arrangements. On the surface, High Arbiter Veltros watched this development with great interest. The trial had already lasted longer than any previous VEC combat challenge. More importantly, it was revealing capabilities that Earth had carefully hidden during their initial diplomatic contacts. The human is in danger now, the Kelver representative observed. The warrior has adapted. The advantages are shifting. Perhaps, Veltros said. Or perhaps this is what the human wanted. To see if the VEC could adapt. To measure their capacity for learning under pressure. You think this was planned? I think humans plan more deeply than we have given them credit for, Veltros replied. They are a young species, but they are not simple. In the command center, Marcus was receiving updates from multiple teams. Thrax's movement speed had increased by 32%. His thermal signature was harder to mask. His pattern recognition was improving rapidly. We need to move to final phase, General Riker said. If we wait much longer, he will have mapped enough of the facility to corner you. Marcus nodded slowly. The final phase was risky. It required him to get close to Thrax, to put himself in direct danger. Everything up to this point had been about keeping distance, about using the environment as a weapon. The final phase required something different. It required trust that 6 months of training would be enough. Initiate final phase, Marcus said. And let us hope we are as ready as... We think we are. New signals went out through the facility. Certain sections began reconfiguring for the last time. The architecture was shifting into its final form, the one designed for close combat, for the confrontation that had always been inevitable. Thrax felt the vibrations of the reconfiguration and smiled grimly. The human was running out of tricks, running out of places to hide. The facility was simplifying, corridors becoming more direct, chambers more open. Soon there would be nowhere left for Marcus to hide. The VEC warrior moved with confidence now, following the most direct path toward the facility's lower levels. His tactical implant indicated that was where the human had retreated. That was where this would end. Marcus stood in a chamber 3 levels below the surface, checking his equipment one final time. He wore a simple combat suit, flexible and light. No armor, no weapons, except for a small device in his hand that looked like nothing more than a data storage unit. It was not a data storage unit. Dr. Park's voice came through his earpiece one last time. Ambassador, you do not have to do this. We can trigger the emergency protocols, flood the lower levels with sedative gas, and this without further risk, and show the galaxy that we can only win by using weapons our opponent cannot counter? Marcus replied, No, Thrax adapted to our environment. Now we adapt to his. That is the lesson we need to teach. Not that we can build clever traps, but that we can match any species when it matters. He took a deep breath. Besides, I agreed to single combat. Time to honor that agreement. Thrax entered the lower levels cautiously. The corridors here were different, wider and taller. The ceiling was high enough for him to move at full extension. It felt more like a proper combat arena. Then he entered a large chamber and saw Marcus. Waiting in the center. The human held no weapon. He stood calmly, arms at his sides. Around the chamber walls, monitors displayed feeds from the surface. The council witnesses watching. Billions of beings across the galaxy tuned in to see how this trial would end. No more tricks, Thrax said, advancing slowly. No more traps. Just you and me, as it should have been from the start. Not exactly, Marcus said. I have one more trick, but this one is different. This one requires you to help me. Thrax stopped, confusion crossing his features. What are you talking about? Marcus held up the small device. This is a data spike. It contains a virus specifically designed to target Veek tactical implants. If I can reach the external port at the base of your skull and upload this virus, your implant will shut down. You will lose your enhanced processing, your threat analysis, your tactical predictions. The Vec warrior stared at him. You tell me this? You announce your final weapon before using it? Yes, Marcus said simply. Because I want you to understand something. I could have programmed this virus to release automatically, to spread through your ship's systems when you landed. I could have attacked your implant remotely. But that would not prove the point I need to prove. He gestured around the chamber. For 5 hours, I have shown you that humans can win through deception and preparation. Now I need to show you something else. That we can also face our enemies directly when we must. Thrax's grip on the plasma blade tightened. You challenge me to prevent you from reaching my implant port. Hand to hand. No tricks, Marcus agreed. Just skill, training, and determination. The galaxy needs to see that humans do not only fight from hiding. We can also face superior opponents and find a way to win. For a long moment, Thrax studied the human. This was insane by any tactical standard. Marcus was announcing his plan, giving up his advantage of surprise, turning the final confrontation into exactly the kind of direct combat that favored the Vec warrior, unless that was itself a strategy. You think your training can match my enhanced body, Thrax said slowly. You think 6 months of preparation can overcome centuries of Vec genetic engineering. I think that determination matters more than genetics, Marcus replied. I think that fighting for your species' survival makes you stronger than any enhancement. I think that you are about to find out what happens when humans stop being clever and start being desperate. He dropped into a combat stance. One hand extended, the other holding the data spike ready. Thrax roared and charged. The Vec warrior moved with incredible speed. Blade extended, all his enhanced strength focused into a single devastating strike. Marcus sidestepped at the last possible instant, the blade missing him by centimeters. He reached for Thrax's neck, fingers searching for the implant port. Thrax spun faster than seemed possible for something so large, backhanding Marcus across the chamber. The human hit the wall hard, gasping for breath. On the monitors, the council witnesses leaned forward. This was what they understood. Direct combat. Strength against strength. Marcus pushed himself up slowly. His ribs ached. His vision swam. But he still held the data spike, still had a mission to complete. Thrax advanced more carefully now, blade ready, watching for tricks. You are brave, human. But bravery is not enough. No, Marcus agreed, breathing hard. But it is a start. He attacked again, using techniques that had taken months to learn. Not trying to overpower Thrax, that was impossible. Instead, using the Vec warrior's mass and momentum against him. Redirecting strikes. Finding angles. Searching always for that implant port, they fought across the chamber. Marcus was faster without armor or enhancements to slow him. Thrax was stronger, each blow capable of ending the fight instantly. The plasma blade carved through air, through walls, through equipment, but could not quite reach the human who danced around it. Minutes passed. Both fighters were breathing hard now. Thrax's core temperature was rising again from the exertion. Marcus had taken several glancing blows that would leave massive bruises. Then Marcus saw his opening. Thrax overextended on a strike, compensating for Marcus's dodges. For just a fraction of a second, the back of the Vec warrior's neck was exposed. Marcus lunged, the data spike extended. Every ounce of remaining strength focused on reaching that implant port. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. The data spike connected with the implant port for exactly 1.3 seconds. That was all the time Marcus needed. The virus uploaded, infiltrated the tactical implant systems, and executed its primary function. Thrax's enhanced combat computer went dark. The Vec warrior felt it immediately. The constant stream of data, the threat assessments, The tactical predictions that had guided him through 47 previous victories, all of it vanished. He was suddenly fighting with only his natural senses, his training, and his instincts. Marcus rolled away, clutching his ribs where Thrax had landed a solid hit during the exchange. The data spike had cracked on impact, useless now, its job complete. Both fighters separated, breathing hard, reassessing. On the surface monitors, the council witnesses erupted in debate. Some argued that disabling the implant was equivalent to poisoning or drugging an opponent. Others countered that the implant itself was an enhancement, and removing it simply leveled the field. High Arbiter Veltros silenced them with a gesture. The implant is technology, not biology, Veltros ruled. Disabling an opponent's equipment is within combat trial parameters. The fight continues. In the chamber below, Thrax adjusted to his new reality. Without the implant, everything felt slower, less certain. He had to rely on his own judgment, his own reflexes, his own experience. It was like fighting blind after years of perfect vision, but he was still Vec, still enhanced, still trained. And Marcus was still just a human who had taken too many hits. They circled each other slowly. The plasma blade hummed between them, still deadly, still capable of ending this in one strike. Marcus's hands were empty now, the data spike destroyed. If he had another trick prepared, another weapon hidden, Thrax could not detect it. "You disabled my implant," Thrax said, his breathing labored. "Clever. But I am still stronger, still faster. You have delayed your defeat, not prevented it." "Maybe," Marcus replied. His voice was strained, pain evident in every word. "But I have bought time. And time is something humans know how to use." Thrax lunged again, but something was different. Without the implant predicting Marcus's movements, without the tactical overlay suggesting optimal strike angles, the Vec warrior had to fight on pure instinct, and his instincts, honed in traditional arena combat, kept expecting patterns that Marcus did not follow. The human moved in ways the implant would have flagged as inefficient or risky. He sacrificed defensive position for mobility. He exposed vulnerable areas to create offensive opportunities. He fought like someone who had trained against opponents who could kill him in one hit. Because that was exactly what he had done. For 6 months, Marcus had sparred against combat robots programmed to match Vec capabilities. He had lost hundreds of practice bouts, been virtually killed more times than he could count. But each loss had taught him something. How to read a strike before it landed. How to use an opponent's expectations against them. How to survive long E. Gnaw to find an opening. The fight became a brutal dance. Thrax's blade carved through the air in patterns that should have connected, but somehow missed by centimeters. Marcus's counterattacks were not meant to damage. They were meant to exhaust, to force Thrax to work harder, to push the Vec warrior's enhanced metabolism. Past sustainable limits. The facility's environmental controls continued their work. The temperature remained at the high edge of Thrax's tolerance. The humidity sapped energy with every breath. The acoustic properties of the chamber made it hard to judge distances by sound alone. Minutes stretched into a quarter hour. Both fighters were operating on reserves now. Thrax's enhanced muscles were screaming for oxygen and cooling that his body could not provide fast enough. Marcus had taken enough hits that he was certain at least 2 ribs were cracked, possibly more. On the monitors, billions of beings across the galaxy watched in stunned silence. This was not supposed to be possible. Tier 4 species did not last this long against Tier 1 champions. The combat should have ended in minutes, not hours. Dr. Park's voice came through Marcus's earpiece one last time. "Ambassador, Thrax's core temperature is at critical levels. His muscle function is degrading. You do not need to win. You just need to survive another few minutes, and he will collapse from heat exhaustion. Marcus heard the words but barely processed them. His entire world had narrowed to the Vec warrior in front of him, to the plasma blade that kept seeking his life, to the desperate need to protect everything Earth represented. Thrax heard nothing but his own ragged breathing. His vision was starting to blur at the edges. His muscles responded slower than they should. The enhanced metabolism that made him a superior warrior was consuming his body's resources faster than they could be replenished. He had one chance left. One final attack with everything he had remaining. The Vec warrior gathered himself for a last devastating strike. Every gram of enhanced strength, every remaining bit of speed, all focused into a single blow that would end this fight one way or another. Marcus saw it coming. The way Thrax's weight shifted, the tension in the warrior's muscles, the slight adjustment of the blade angle. He knew what was about to happen. He also knew he was too tired to dodge it completely. Thrax struck. The plasma blade came faster than anything Marcus had seen in the entire fight. There was no clever evasion, no tactical counter. Marcus threw himself backward, knowing it would not be enough, hoping only that the blow would not be instantly fatal. The blade caught him across the left shoulder, burning through suit material and into flesh. The pain was beyond anything Marcus had imagined, white-hot and all-consuming. He hit the ground hard, his shoulder a mass of agony, but he was alive. Thrax stood over him, blade raised for the killing blow. The Vec warrior's arms trembled. His breathing came in gasps. His entire body was on the verge of shutdown. "Yield," Thrax managed to say. "Yield now, and I will make it quick." Marcus looked up at the Vec champion, at the warrior who had won 47 trials, at the being who represented everything the galaxy believed about strength and superiority. Then Marcus smiled through his pain. "No," he said simply. He swept Thrax's legs out from under him. That the move should not have worked. Thrax was enhanced, trained, vastly superior in strength. But he was also exhausted, overheated, and standing on shaking legs that could barely support his weight. He fell hard, the plasma blade skittering across the chamber floor. Both fighters lay on the ground, both struggling to move, both pushed beyond their limits. Marcus reached for Thrax's neck again, not with a weapon this time, just with his hand. His fingers found the implant port, still open from the earlier virus upload. "I could finish this," Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. "I could damage the port, leave you permanently without your implant. But I am not going to do that." Thrax turned his head to look at the human. "Why?" "Because the point is not to destroy you," Marcus replied. "The point is to show the galaxy what happens when you push humans too far, when you threaten everything we love, when you give us no choice but to fight with everything we have." He pulled his hand back and rolled away, putting distance between them. "You are defeated, Thrax, not because I am stronger, not because humans are superior, but because we will do whatever it takes to protect our freedom. We will use every advantage. We will fight in ways you do not expect. We will adapt and survive and refuse to surrender." Thrax tried to rise. His body would not cooperate. The enhanced muscles that had carried him through decades of combat had finally reached their limit. He collapsed back to the ground. "I cannot continue," Thrax said quietly. "Victory is yours, human." On the surface, High Arbiter Veltros rose from his observation position. "The trial is concluded. Ambassador Marcus Webb of Earth is victorious by incapacitation of his opponent. All charges against humanity are dismissed. The Vec Imperium will pay restitution for false accusations." The council witnesses erupted in chaos. Some protested. Some demanded reviews. Some sat in thoughtful silence, processing what they had witnessed. Medical teams descended into the facility immediately. Both fighters required urgent care. Thrax was suffering from severe heat exhaustion and multiple system failures. Marcus had a partially cauterized shoulder wound, several broken ribs, an extensive bruising. As the medics worked, Thrax looked at Marcus one more time. "You fought well. Better than I expected. Better than any Tier 4 species should be capable of." "That is the thing about classifications," Marcus replied through gritted teeth as the medics treated his shoulder. "They are useful for organizing information, but they are terrible for predicting what a species will do when survival is at stake." 3 weeks later, Marcus stood once again in the Grand Council chamber. His shoulder was still healing, bound in medical wrapping that the alien doctors had provided. His ribs ached with every breath, but he stood straight, addressing the assembled species with calm dignity. High Arbiter Veltros spoke to the vast chamber. "We have reviewed Earth's status within our classification system. Technologically, they remain Tier 4. However, we acknowledge that our system does not adequately measure all forms of capability. Earth has demonstrated strategic thinking, adaptability, and determination that exceeded our projections." He paused, letting his words carry to every corner of the enormous space. "We offer Earth an elevated position in this chamber. You may move from the rear sections to a more prominent location, acknowledging your demonstrated capabilities." Marcus shook his head. "We appreciate the offer, High Arbiter, but we respectfully decline." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. "We are comfortable where we are," Marcus continued. "The view from the back of the chamber is excellent. We can observe everything. We can watch and learn. And if the past weeks have taught us anything, it is that the species everyone is watching are not always the most dangerous." Valtros made a sound that might have been amusement. "You prefer to be underestimated." "We prefer to be left alone," Marcus replied. "But if we cannot have that, then yes, being underestimated has advantages." Director Cole stepped forward. "However, Earth would like to propose something. We have knowledge that may be valuable to other species. Knowledge about asymmetric warfare, about fighting when outmatched, about turning disadvantages into advantages. We offer to establish a consulting service for species who find themselves in conflicts they cannot win through conventional means." The implications were staggering. Humanity was not seeking power directly. They were offering to teach others to think like humans, to fight like survivors, to win against superior opponents. Many species immediately saw the value. Just as many saw the danger. High Arbiter Veltros considered carefully. "You offer to teach other species your methods of warfare." "We offer to teach survival," Marcus corrected, "with one important condition. We will only work with species who are defending themselves, not attacking others. What we learn from millions of years of survival on Earth is not a weapon of conquest. It is a tool of last resort." "Accepted," Veltros said, "with the understanding that any species learning from humanity must be carefully monitored." Over the following months, something remarkable happened in galactic politics. Species that had been classified as Tier 3 or Tier 4 began requesting consultations with Earth's strategic advisors. The Vec Imperium, despite their humiliation, were among the first to formally request training. Thrax himself delivered the request. He found Marcus in a human establishment on a neutral station. The ambassador was drinking something called coffee and reviewing reports on a datapad. "I came to understand how you won," Thrax said, sitting across from him. "And do you?" Marcus asked. "Yes, you made me fight a different war than the one I prepared for. You controlled the battlefield, the timing, the terms of engagement. You forced me into a conflict where my advantages became liabilities." "That is part of it," Marcus agreed. "But not all. What is the rest?" Marcus set down his coffee. "You fought for honor, for glory, for your species' reputation. I fought because losing meant my entire civilization would become slaves. Desperation is a powerful motivator. Thrax was quiet for a long moment. Teach us. Teach the Vec to fight as humans fight. Why? You are Tier 1. You have always won through superior force. Because the galaxy is changing, Thrax said. We watched your trial. So did every other species. They learned that tier classifications are not absolute. That determined species can defeat superior opponents. If Tier 4 humans can beat Tier 1 Vec, what does that mean for our future conflicts? Marcus understood. The trial had not just saved Earth. It had fundamentally changed how species viewed power in the galaxy. We will teach you, Marcus said. But you must understand something. Once you learn to fight the way we fight, you cannot go back. There is no glory in these methods. No honor. Just survival. Then survival will have to be enough, Thrax replied, as word spread across the galaxy. Other species began to reconsider humanity's position. Earth remained in the back rows of the council chamber, still classified as Tier 4. Still considered primitive by traditional measures. But now, when representatives from powerful civilizations looked toward those back rows, they did so with caution and respect. Because they had learned an important lesson, the species sitting in the back were not there because they were weak. They were there because they were patient, because they were watching, and because they understood something that the galaxy had forgotten. That strength was not just about technology or physical power. Sometimes the strongest species were the ones that refused to quit, that would use any advantage, that would fight without limits to protect what they loved. And in a galaxy that had operated on established hierarchies for thousands of years, that was the most dangerous capability of all. We Triclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.